Snubbed Celtics Show on 98.5 The Sports Hub. Brought to you by Shaw's and Star Market, Delta Dental of Massachusetts, and Corona. Now, Casper and Murray.
Sports Hub Celtics Show. Start of the new year. And as we sit here, Barth, on January 3rd, 2026, the Celtics are in third place in the Eastern Conference. They're 21-12. They're 3.5 games behind Detroit for the top seed in the East. They're only a game and a half behind the Knicks. For the second spot in the East, they're doing it all without Jayson Tatum. And after what was undeniably an ugly start for the Celtics this year, they have turned it around and then some. How surprised are you by where they are at this point?
Somewhat surprised. Like we talked about with the Patriots, the East sucks. It's bad.
Awful.
So I was never, as cool as I think it would have been to see AJ DeBanza and green and white at TD Garden. I never really believed they were going to be that caliber team. I thought they were going to be, just outside of the play-in, kind of just above that. So the consistency they've started to play with after that rough start to the season is really what stands out to me, because they're a young team right now. That's just the reality of it. And we don't think of them as a young team because they've had this established core, but they blew it up somewhat in the offseason, and obviously they're missing guys with injuries. Guys are out of the lineup, but still playing very consistent basketball. So I'm not surprised that we have a basketball season. I am surprised that they look like a team that if and when they get Jayson Tatum back, should be among, if not the favorite, to come out of the East.
I'm surprised by the turnaround since the beginning of the year. This is where it's probably a little ahead of where I thought they were going to be. I was on opening day, and I said I think they should be the 4 or the 5 seed in the East. They should be a middle of the pack team in the Eastern Conference without Jayson Tatum. So this is not significantly ahead of where I thought they should be, because despite their issues, they still have Jaylen Brown, who's a top 15 player in the NBA, and that is enough in the NBA to be a middle-of-the-pack team, especially in a weak Eastern Conference. What I saw from them, though, at the beginning of the year was scary. There's no other way to say it. I mean, they looked like a team that might struggle to be a play-in team. And, when we heard, let's be honest, Vegas had them as a 41.5 win team, which is essentially a play-in team.
Right.
They are, performing significantly above that. I thought that was easy money. There's a reason I bet it. I thought this team was certainly better than that just because you have Jaylen Brown. And in some ways, he's proven that. He's been tremendous and should have been Eastern Conference or should have been NBA Player of the Month. He's been that good. And he's been, the number one reason why the Celtics are where they are. And I do think it's noteworthy. I think one of the real stories of this year is it doesn't really feel like they came out at the beginning of the year playing a style of basketball that befit their best player. They still came out, and it was very much bombs away from three, and that doesn't fit Jaylen Brown's style of play. And it feels like things changed after the Utah game, which was an abomination. I mean, 51 three-point attempts against Utah, and you lose at home to the Jazz. That is as bad as it gets. And then it feels like there's been a real shift after that. And that shift, to me, has been a team that has played more to the strengths of their best player and is playing more in the mold of their best player. And here they are.
And that was the big question to me coming into the season was, look, obviously Joe Mazzulla won a championship. Not to take that much away from him, but did he come up with this great strategy, or did he just have a roster full of stud players and kind of however they ran it, they were going to find ways to win?
I think it's that. I think it's pretty obvious. They just ran train over everybody because they're so much better than everybody.
A little Kyle Shanahan.
Yep.
But, on the other side, okay, well, he still has good players, but it's not what it was. No Jayson Tatum, no Kristaps Porzingis, no Jrue Holiday. Would that style continue to play out the way it had, or would it maybe get exposed? And if it did, would he be able to adjust? And all right, he tried it, and he's allowed to try it. I'm not saying he had to adjust right away. He's allowed to try it. It didn't work, and he's adjusted. And he deserves a lot of credit for that, because there's a lot of people, I think myself included, who wondered if there would be that adjustment.
B-Rob, am I right in suggesting that there's been a turnaround for the Celtics team and it goes back to that Jazz game?
Yeah, I could think that's like a decent turning point, I think, in terms of the three-point volume I'm actually looking at right now. It's down 11% from last year. They're third in the league in three-point attempts per game. So they're still getting them up, but it seems like it's at a more manageable level. Yeah. More that makes sense for, like I said, Jaylen Brown is not putting up 10 per game. He's been great inside the arc. Peyton Pritchard has been great, just like finding his shots in the paint over bigger guys there. So the offensive flow has looked a lot better. And that, I think, if we look back at this season, that would be the game I would say it would be a turning point on that front.
Are they playing more in Brown style? Is that a fair way to summarize it?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, like Brown is just he was hurt most of last year, and we forget that in terms of what he was doing. But now he's always been a phenomenal mid-range shooter, and now he's just playing with more freedom than ever. He's the number one option. But what I liked about him and this like run he had of 9 straight games of 30-point performances that tied Bird's record, that streak came to a stop because he had 10 assists in Utah the other night, and because he didn't force it. And so when it's there, he's able to get to the shots he wants to. But if other teams are going to start doubling them, he's fine turning to Jarrett White, to Payne Pritchard, to Simons. And so that type of balance within the offense has been a very big plus. And the fact, guys, like they're off. Forget about Jaylen Brown. Like their offense is better this year than last year. That's just crazy to me. Like statistically, that they're at this level given the talent on this roster.
So, and not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but when Jayson Tatum comes back, and we're seeing all the workout videos, and first of all, am I allowed to get a little excited on the thought of him coming back this year?
Of course. I mean, the man's been putting out videos since October here. So yes, this is like, go right ahead.
Is it just back to the bombs away 2024, 2025 Celtics when he comes back, or is there a way that they marry what they're doing now with what Tatum wants to do?
I think you got to marry it, just based on the talent of the guys you have here, because you have, I think part of the equation here is they brought in these younger, kind of more athletic wings. Their offensive rebound, they're crashing harder this year. Like Cade is a good offensive rebounder. These, whether it's Gonzalez or Minot, guys up and down the board, they're getting these second chances. And the talent they had last year was better offensively, but Al Horford's not in there banging on the boards. Like Drew Holiday's not in there trying to get rebounds. Those are guys in their 30s. They are that's not playing to their strengths at this point. So I think Tatum is clearly watching this year. He's been traveling the team all year, Alex, and so he's been watching this firsthand. And you would think his adjustment will be to look at this being like, all right, I don't need to put up 10 threes per game right now. Whenever I come back in, I am going to kind of marry my style with what this team's doing.
It might not even be marrying the styles. It might just be Tatum assimilating into what they're doing now. It might be the other extreme.
Yeah, I believe that.
Who should be the number one option when he returns? Let's get into that. 617-779-0985. Does Jaylen Brown's performance here make you alter your opinion about what you should expect of Jayson Tatum coming back off of a significant injury? We'll do that on the other side. Sports Hub Celtics show. Matt McCarthy, Alex Barth, Brian Robb is here. We're in for the guys.
We'll have more of the Sports Hub Celtics show next.
I earned my degree online at Arizona State University. I chose to get my degree at ASU because I knew that I'd get a quality education, they were recognized for excellence, and that I would be prepared for the workforce upon graduating. To be associated with ASU, both as a student and alum, it makes me extremely proud, and having experienced the program, I know now that I'm set up for success. Learn more at asuonline.asu.edu.
We're back to the Sports Hub Celtics show. 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Sports Hub Celtics show. Matt McCarthy, Alex Barth, Brian Robb in for Gasper and Murray today. So everything about the Celtics is going to center around Jayson Tatum's what we assume to be return later on this year. What should it look like when he comes back? Jaylen Brown has been one of the best players in the NBA, has been a legitimate, in my opinion, MVP candidate. We'll get into his snub of NBA Player of the Month, which he should have been. How much do you want essentially Tatum to take over the Celtics when he comes back, given he is coming off a significant injury and given the success the Celtics are having with Jaylen Brown as their number one option? Essentially, who should be the Celtics' number one option when Jayson Tatum comes back?
So long term, it should still be Jayson Tatum because I believe Jayson Tatum is a better player.
Yep.
But I think you gradually, you don't like put him back in day one and run it all around him. I think you gradually ease him in, and there's two reasons for that. One is just the physical conditioning of it. I know he's been posting all these workout videos, and like he seems like he's in good shape, but playing 30-something minutes every other night, like that's just a different level. He's going to have to get into that. And then also, you don't want to push all your chips into the Jayson Tatum basket if there's going to be an adjustment period for him physically coming back. So I think ideally it's Jayson Tatum, but I think you let Jayson Tatum kind of re-earn that spot with his play.
B-Rob?
Yeah, I'm apart from this. This is what it looks like when he comes back. When Jayson Tatum gets back on the floor this year, he's not going to look like Jayson Tatum in the next 12, 4 or 6 months, I should say, coming 10 to 12 months off of this surgery. With that said, having a Jayson Tatum at 85% or 95%, sure, Celtics would take that in a heartbeat. But trying to put all this back on his plate immediately is, I think, asking too much of him. And also, when this team is obviously doing quite well right now without him doing that, so why you don't have to put it on his plate like that? So why don't you let him work his way back in? And obviously, he's going to be in a prominent role, but you don't have to, wear him out as much as you have in the past couple of years, regardless.
Here's the good news: is that I think Tatum, for an NBA superstar, is as egoless as you get in that role. Tatum is, and I think we criticize, and Tatum has been criticized in this town for that. He is an unselfish player. He is not afraid to pass the ball. There's he's not good enough late in games. He doesn't take over the game and all of that. And some of those criticisms are valid. But in this particular spot, it helps them. It helps them. Jaylen Brown should still be the number one option when Tatum comes back, because Brown is playing at an extraordinarily high level, and Tatum probably will not when he returns. It will not be 100% of Jayson Tatum. I want Tatum to be the number two option when he comes back, to make Jaylen Brown a better player, to pass the ball to Jaylen Brown, and eventually you transition Tatum back into that role. I do not want it to happen overnight. I think you guys are totally spot on about this. 617-779-0985. Dean in Shrewsbury. Hey, Dean.
Hey, I think Tatum should be the number one option when he comes back eventually, like you guys say. If he's 100, once he's 100%, he should be the number one option. He's just a much better passer, and he takes care of the ball better than Jaylen does. But I don't want him launching 10 threes a game anymore. He gets to the line a lot, and he's great inside. I don't want him having a mid-range game, as his mid-range percentage is shockingly low, but he should get inside more and take less threes.
Yeah, I'm not convinced coming off an injury he's going to do that.
I've always liked Tatum as a slasher. I think it's an underrated part of his game. But I also understand why he might be hesitant to do that initially coming off this injury.
I think your concern, Barth, is valid that, when Tatum comes back, they start taking more threes. Because, B-Rob, I think you've made a good point. It feels like it's been in a better spot. The volume of three-point shooting has been in a better spot here in the, really after the Utah game. And that better fits Jaylen Brown's style of play. When Tatum comes back, I do think it's a fair concern to say, are they going to start doing more of what they did last year? Is that volume going to start creeping up into a really unhealthy spot for them?
Yeah, I think you have to look at the totality of what caused them to lose in the playoffs last year. And on going back a couple years, obviously putting the finals year aside there, it's a lot of time, it's the three-point volume and the variance you're dealing with that. And the other curious thing I'm looking with Tatum too, it's the Achilles. I think Kevin Durant talked about this coming back from an Achilles injury. That's the challenge of a pull-up three coming off of an Achilles injury. That's tests you the most. And he talked about how he kind of reduced his volume from that level there. So I wonder how that kind of translates to Tatum when he comes back, because he was taking 10 threes a game last year. And so that's asking a lot of your body there.
How much do you think Tatum is, and I know that it's been reported, I think that they've talked a little bit, but how much do you think it weighs on Tatum that he hears somebody like Kevin Durant say that and adjust his game? And how much do you think he's talking to other players who have been through that? And how much is that going to, not just, I think we've heard a lot about how him talking to other players has shaped his recovery process. How much do you think it shapes his game when he comes back?
It's fascinating, but because Tatum's just so much younger than Durant was within this injury. So you look at this, and the procedure he had is a little bit different than these other guys. Right. So I think he probably doesn't even know until he gets out there of like, okay, how is this? He's going through the process now. He's been playing clearly 1-on-1 forever now. He's going to have a very long ramp-up process with 3-on-3, 5-on-5 when he gets closer, which I imagine will be the months ahead here. But that's a good question. Like I bet he just doesn't even know yet.
How about JB in Los Angeles? Hey, JB.
Hey, how's it going, fellas? Good morning.
Good morning.
Is it still morning over there? I'm in California.
JB, it's morning for me. 12 o'clock is still too early for me.
Especially on a Saturday.
Yeah, you kidding me?
You are the living Homer Simpson snuggled in bed on Sunday meme.
That's me, yep.
So I wanted to talk about Jaylen Brown carrying games without Tatum doesn't mean they can't coexist, I keep hearing a lot of talk about that. And look, I'll just say the first thing. They've already won a championship, so I'm going to get that out of the way. Brown took home the finals MVP, but Tatum was the best player in the clinching Game 5 with 31 points, 11 assists, and 8 rebounds, which is something that the Celtics will severely be grateful for when he comes back. I think Tatum's rebounding and defense are really underrated. And he led the team in points, rebounds, assists. Only other people that would have done that is like Larry Bird and like Tim Duncan. Also, there's like evidence that they didn't just coexist. Tatum has deferred to Jaylen. We forget that the last 2 years when Tatum and Jaylen were playing with Porzingis and all them, that Jaylen was the one that would start out hot, and Tatum would take over in the fourth.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things about Tatum that I admire is he's, again, as egoless as you get for an NBA superstar, and obviously there's an element of ego there, but he's never afraid. We criticize him often for deferring. I actually think it's a really good trait that he has, and I think it will serve them well as he comes off the injury. I personally, Barth, I don't question whether Brown and Tatum can coexist.
No, I think we're well past that.
We're past that. What I do question is how effective it can be. I mean, there's a difference between, coexisting and getting the absolute most out of a situation. And I mean, to be totally honest, the Celtics still have not, I think, reached the full ceiling of the Brown Tatum era because they've only won one championship. They had a significant collapse and disappointment last year. Now, Tatum got hurt, but they had already lost that series, to be totally honest. So, the question is, it's not whether they can coexist, it's whether they can maximize Brown and Tatum together, and I do still think that's a fair question. And what it looks like when Tatum comes back.
Well, I mean, I think maximizing what they look like together is 2024.
Yes.
It's not really going to look much better than that.
Okay, but that was also a loaded team, and it's only happened once.
So
they've only really, frankly, gotten to that level where they were firing truly on all cylinders once.
To me, the question is, if Tatum has to reinvent his game coming off the injury, how does that change the dynamic? Because I think they had a good dynamic, even when they didn't win the title that next year. I think they had a good dynamic, and the caller spoke to it a little bit, playing off each other. But if Tatum is now more of a slasher, which is generally Jaylen Brown's game, how does that change the dynamic? That's the bigger question to me.
B-Rob?
And that's the most encouraging part about this season so far we've seen. Of being like, is Jaylen Brown capable of doing more? Yes. Is Derek White and Peyton Pritchard capable of like being a viable third option on a contender? I'd say the way they've played, the answer is yes, more, no. And then do you have enough? You're never going to get to the talent level that you talked about, McCarthy, like in 2024. Again, just with the salary cap rules, you're never going to be able to stack the deck like that. But you have all these kind of emerging young wings here, like Hugo Gonzalez, like Jordan Walsh. It looks like there may be enough here to where you can build the right dynamic around those guys moving forward, where you're like, okay, you have all this money tied up in Tatum and Brown, but there is enough of a sporting cast here around it to make them a viable contender here. Potentially if one more, obviously, I think you have to make one more move to get another big in place here, but it's a lot more promising than it looked even a few months ago on that front.
I want to talk about Jaylen Brown not being named NBA Player of the Month. Do that coming up. 617-779-0985. Sports Hub Celtics Show. B-Rob's here. McCarthy, Barth, and for Gasper and Murray.
The Sports Hub Celtics Show continues after these. You want to talk Boston Celtics. This is where you do it. The Sports Hub Celtics Show on 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Jaylen Brown gets screwed, NBA Player of the Month. This to be a talking point in the last 24 hours or so. Joe Mazzulla won Coach of the Month. Jaylen Brown does not win NBA Player of the Month.
As Joe Mazzulla famously said, nobody cares.
Well, I do agree with that.
I love that. It's one of my favorite Joe Mazzulla lines of all time.
It's a good one. Was that in reference to winning Coach of the Month? What was that in reference to?
It was Coach of the Month, right? It was Coach of the Week or Coach of the Month.
Coach of the Month.
Do they even have Coach of the Week?
They don't have Coach of the Week, thankfully.
Okay. That feels like it would be a little.
Now, listen, in the end, do I care that Jaylen Brown didn't win NBA Player of the Month?
No, nobody cares. That's the whole point.
Nobody cares. Do I think it's wrong, though? Do I think they got it wrong? Yes.
Yeah, I'm with
because he's been that good. So, I mean, that's what I would say about that. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and pound the table on a Saturday. The league is out to get No, they got it wrong. They generally do.
Yeah, but he's going to put up like 50 tonight.
Okay, but that's a good thing. Is
yes.
Jaylen Brown feeling snubbed again? And yes, Jaylen Brown does probably not get the respect he deserves because he's the number 2 to Jayson Tatum, even though he was better than Jayson Tatum in the NBA Finals and was better probably, in the 2024 playoffs than Tatum. Yes, and he got left off the Olympic team. Yes, and it's another slight and a snub of Jaylen Brown, and that's ultimately good for the Celtics in the end. We can agree with that. Yeah, they got it wrong.
Oh, they absolutely got it wrong.
B-Rob, they get it wrong?
Well, you're discounting the big NBA Cup win by Jalen Brunson, I think.
Oh, well.
That's where we're overlooking this.
That's very important. Are they going to hang that banner or no?
Apparently no.
Good for them.
So, yeah, kudos to the Knicks for that.
I thought the league made them. Didn't the league make the Lakers?
I think they made them the last couple of years, and the Knicks came out and were like, yeah, we're going to stop that.
Can I say something kind of controversial?
Sure.
Good for the Knicks.
Oh, I don't think that's controversial at all.
Well, no, just the sentiment of good for, like, the Knicks did something right.
Yeah.
Feels like a controversial take.
I'm dead serious. If you had asked me, hey, McCarthy, who won the NBA Cup? I would not have been able to tell you. And when was that? 3 weeks ago?
Yep.
No idea.
They might have to go back to the drawing board in the NBA Cup if we're already at that point 3 years in.
So I liked it year one, but that was such I think it was a unique experience because we had the Celtics need to win by 23.
Right.
And that happened in a year where you knew the Celtics were good and you just wanted to see them prove something weird on a Tuesday night. And that worked. In a very specific moment in time, it worked. And it was new and it was novel, and I liked it. They got to get rid of it now. It's a joke. Nobody cares.
The money's there. They just have to They have to figure out a way to get people to care again because the timing of it in the calendar and just on random nights, the novelty of it is gone.
So, who was I on? It might have been Jake. I don't remember. I was on with somebody during Christmas week. Like, what if they somehow tied it to the NBA Christmas slate?
Right. I think that's a good idea. Doing that or like All-Star Weekend or something like that where...
All-Star Weekend, you're running it late into the season. But exactly. I have kind of felt like a few times, oh, wow, that went by quick. Could they make it longer? Then would it dominate the regular season too much?
It would be better than doing whatever they're doing on All-Star Weekend at this point. That All-Star game needs to go. It's bad. It's really bad. It might be the worst of the All-Star games, and that's saying something. I don't know how you can be worse than the Pro Bowl, but it might be.
But regardless, going back to that is the only thing, going back to Brunson versus Jaylen Brown, like that Jaylen Brown didn't have that on his resume versus Brunson, but he beat him statistically everywhere else. And I don't know, like Jaylen Brown to me, this is a guy year after year. I always think that he's like hit a peak and he keeps finding a little higher level, like growth wise. And that kind of translates to the playoffs most years too. So that's when you look at the big picture now and going back to like, the trade rumors in the offseason, like, do they need to look at blowing this up? Obviously they clearly made the right call there to being like, we need to see this out with Tatum and Brown, despite this injury, despite the fact we're losing all these guys around him, because we haven't seen Brown's peak yet. And you look at what he's done this month, what he's done this season period, and it's very encouraging to think, okay, now you look at this compared to the rest of the Eastern Conference, and it's like there's nothing for the Celtics to be afraid of in the the rest of the decade here, it seems like.
No, B-Rob, I think it's a great point. And, pointing out that he was hurt last year he had a down year by, coming off of, the finals MVP, and it really felt like he'd taken such a step from 23 to 24. And it didn't feel like that happened last year, but he's taken that step again this year. He, to your point, he keeps getting to a level that I think, and I'm a Jaylen Brown fan, that I don't even know if I saw him getting to this level, and I'm probably a bigger Brown fan than most.
And it's not like he's just improving his game. I don't know. It's more impressive to me. He's had to improve his game this year. Like, he gets put in these situations where how many times we said, well, what would really help the Celtics this year is if they take another step. Is if Jaylen Brown takes the next step, I should say. And it's like, well, does he have another step? And it feels like more often than not, he answers that as yes. And it's like getting backed into the corner isn't the right phrase, but he seems to improve the most when they need him to improve, which is very impressive.
So I like the assist numbers too.
Tremendous.
So I had a huge question entering this year about whether Jaylen Brown could make his teammates better around him. Because I think that's been a fair knock on Brown. Sometimes the ball sticks there. When it ends up with him, I get it as the number 2 option. You get the ball and maybe it's not going somewhere else. He's making his guys better. And, to your point, B-Rob, the other night, the 30-point game streak snaps because he has 10 assists.
Right.
He's making everybody else around him better. Like that to me is maybe a part of his game that I really questioned entering this year, and I'm starting to having to reevaluate how I feel about it.
Yeah, just when you look where he was at, where he came into the league to where he's at now, I'm with Alex. I didn't know he was capable of getting to this point from a passing standpoint, but he's there. He's running pick and roll stuff now. He's getting, again, all these opportunities that he probably wouldn't have gotten if Tatum didn't get hurt and they'd have to make all these other offseason changes. But it's there now, and he's one of the few guys who are the drop off from the playoffs from the regular season is not as sharp. Like, he's been able to maintain pretty well there throughout his career. And that's a pretty big deal here going forward. So, I mean, it's wild right now. I mean, like, look at them. Even if Tatum is not at 100%, guys, looking against other teams in the Eastern Conference, does anyone scare you right now in that group?
No.
I mean, the Pistons are very talented, but they're just so young. I don't think they're ready. No, if Jayson Tatum comes back and they're still playing like this, they should be the favorites to come out of the East.
How about LaCar in Boston? How you doing, man?
Yeah, I want to ask the same question I asked to Jerome and them last week. The question is, will you take Tatum and let him come off the bench, or will you start him? And if you do start Jayson Tatum, who's coming out the starting lineup?
I am not putting Jayson Tatum on the bench.
No, he might be on a minutes restriction, but he's going to start.
Yeah.
I have no problem if he's on minutes restriction to start. I kind of assume he will be, but he should be starting.
Yeah, Joe Murray brought this up yesterday, and I said no. He's got to start. Come on, I mean, it is Jayson Tatum. Now that doesn't mean that he should be maybe the number 1 option. And what does your starting 5 look like when he comes back? B-Rob?
I would probably leave Payton Pritchard in there and go all offense, given that Jordan Walsh has kind of taken a step back here in the last couple of weeks. But you could certainly make the case, if you want a monster defensive lineup, you keep Walsh in there, and that's a huge lineup. You got White, Jaylen, Tatum, Walsh, and Cato. Like that's as versatile a group as you're going to find around the league.
Could you see a situation where they kind of rotate that based on opponent?
Potential, yeah.
Some games, okay, it makes more sense for Pritchard to start. Some games, it makes more sense for Walsh to start.
Yeah. Certainly in the playoffs.
Do you trust Joe Mazzulla to get it right?
Joe's done a lot this year. He's learned a lot of I was skeptical of a lot of the last couple of years just based on what they had from a talent standpoint. What he's gotten out of this group in the last 40 games and the buttons he's pushed to be able to kind of go, whether Walsh had a few good games, Ugo's had a good few games. He's kind of ridden the hot hand and gotten everyone giving their best here in 40 games. With this group, I trust him to do that.
I actually think Mazzulla might be more impressive to me this year than Jaylen Brown.
I don't know about that, but explain.
Well, because we knew Jaylen Brown was a great player. But you look at what he's done, first of all, being able to adjust off the heavy three-point thing, which we all didn't know if he'd be willing to do that. He's done that. You look at what they've done with the player development, with guys like Jordan Walsh, with guys like Ugo Gonzalez. 19, right? 19 years old, and he's making some of the plays he's making at the NBA level. Baylor Shireman's giving them some minutes. Josh Minot. So, like, the way he's adjusted the strategy, and the development we've seen from some of the younger players, which is a coaching thing as a whole. It's not just Missoula. But when you're the head coach, you get the credit and you get the fault for what the coaching staff does collectively. I've been very impressed with the job Joe Missoula's done this year.
I hesitate, and here's why. Because I still think his fatal flaw is stubbornness. And I think
that's the point. Like, he's been a lot less stubborn than I thought he would be.
Has that been forced on him?
I don't really care why it happened.
Okay,
he's done it.
Okay, no, why it happened does matter, because coming into this year, I think the majority of us said you can't go bombs away from 3 with this team. And that's exactly what they did up until the Utah game.
Yeah, it was like 10 games in?
What happened? What happened after the Utah game? Did Jaylen Brown get involved? Did the front office get involved? Did Joe come to this conclusion by himself? I don't have the answer to that, but I do wonder if there was some sort of organizational factor that got to Joe Missoula, be it Jaylen Brown saying, we can't play this way, Brad Stevens saying, we can't play this way, or is that Joe Missoula himself coming to the realization that we can't play this way? And I do think my biggest concern, Missoula is a very bright guy.
Yeah.
And, when I think he's open-minded and allows himself to look at alternatives, he can find those alternatives. I do wonder, though, if you're asking him to rotate a group during the playoffs, I wonder if he's capable of that, because he might just come to the idea that this is my best lineup and I stick with it. And that is the stubbornness that does come out with Missoula, that came out with him last year. No, this is the way we play. Damn it, damn the torpedoes, bombs away. Like that, his stubbornness helped cost them last year. When does that show up again? Rob?
And that's the question. I mean, that will be the true test, is the playoffs. But in this regular season, he has shown a lot more. But granted, he really hasn't had the roster to do this the last, couple years, 3 years, because you've had veterans everywhere. You haven't really had guys to rotate in and out of the rotation because everyone had their spot locked in. Now we're seeing, okay, he is showing more creativeness, more flexibility there. But I agree with you. Like, the proof will come in the playoffs, because that's where, like, you go back to even last year in Knicks series, forget about the adjustments. Like, even sticking with Porzingis for so long in that series when he was giving you absolutely nothing, like things like that, he needs to be able to adapt more in those moments quicker. And we'll see again where that comes, because it's going to be more challenging with this group.
All right, I see on the phone lines. We'll take care of you. Your thoughts on the Celtics, where they stand right now, 3rd place in the Eastern Conference, and things are good, no doubt about it. We'll continue. Sports Hub Celtics Show. McCarthy, Barth, B-Rob in for Gasper and Murray.
You're listening to the 98.5 The Sports Hub Celtics Show
Radio Network.
We're back to the Sports Hub Celtics Show on 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Matt McCarthy, Alex Barth, in for Gasper and Murray. B-Rob's here. So are you. How about Chris in Hartford? Hi, Chris.
Hey, Matt. What's up, Barthy? How you guys doing today?
How you doing?
Hey.
Good. So, Missoula is really the key, because he's starting to trust his bench. He did this about 15 games ago, okay? In the beginning of the season, Brown was getting out. He wasn't not rebounding at all. And they told him, they said, you got to rebound. You'll get the ball. Trust us. We'll get the set for you down the road. But, Jaylen, we need you on the boards, and he's done that. So I'm really happy with Jaylen. You guys all know I didn't think, 101 basic basketball, but he is learning, and I'm so happy for him. But the guy is Garza. If you listen to Scalabrine, watch Garza. The bench is what saved us about 4 to 5 games this year. If we didn't have that unpredictable bench like that with the intensity, we're a 500 team. And Jaylen Brown can score as many points as he wants. He's still 2.7 on a plus-minus.
So I think it's a real credit to Brad Stevens in the fact that the Celtics are getting anything out of any role players whatsoever this year, because they did the salary dumps. They didn't get really much of anything for anybody. They didn't spend any money this offseason, and yet you have Hugo Gonzalez, Jordan Walsh, Garza's giving them something, Minot's giving them something. The Celtics had very, very, very little wiggle room, and yet Stevens has found players who have been able to help them this year, and I think it is a remarkable credit to the job that he has done. He is the best general manager in this town, and I don't think it's even close.
Along those lines, B-Rob, you can probably speak to this. I feel like every other day I open up Twitter, and there's some insane stat line from Amari Williams up in Portland. There's been talks about the Celtics maybe needing another big. Is there any chance they bring him in and give him a little bit of a look at the NBA level, or is this just? I mean, I remember J.D. Davison dominated the G League, and that's just kind of what he was.
Right.
But should they give Amari Williams a look?
I mean, I guess he got a couple chances when Kay was out early in the year, but not anything significant. I don't think. I think he's eventually going to trend closer to the Jay Davidson type of like a 4A player, but certainly he is putting up triple doubles, and there is. I expect him to get a chance like a year or two down the road. I don't expect him to get a chance for this season, but they still have an open roster spot, and if they don't make the trade, he'd be my odds-on favorite to get that spot at the end of the year because just because he was second in the pecking order at one point, even ahead of guys like Boucher and Tillman. For
production's production at a certain point.
Right, he's an intriguing guy. Like he can pass the ball. He's a great passer. Is he have enough strength to battle on the boards in the NBA? We're going to find out.
Ben in Groveland. Hey, Ben.
Hey, guys. Great show. I just want to preface this with I know that Jaylen and Tatum can coexist, but the recent comments of Jaylen Brown saying how that this is his favorite season thus far, he really enjoys being able to lead a group of guys and being the one. And because of that and his relationship with the city of Boston and maybe some of the fans even way back from draft night, like, is this something we're down the road? I know I don't want to go too futuristic, but down the road where he might be more likely to request a trade so he can be a one somewhere else.
It's always going to exist. It's always going to hang over them. That doesn't mean that I think it's going to happen anytime soon, but, I mean, this is the NBA, right?
Yes. And I don't know, Gavi, you feel like this could be the best of both worlds for situation with Jaylen stands. Like, he's getting that chance right now, so he doesn't have to wonder anymore what it feels like, but he also knows, okay, if I want to win going forward, this is still the best place I'm going to have a chance to do it. So, I don't know. I don't expect him excelling in a number one role this year to be like, okay, I need to do this somewhere else where I'm going to be a 500 team for the next 5 years. I
mean, it goes back to the Tracy McGrady comments. Like, don't be careful what you wish for. The grass is not always greener. But it's always going to hang over them. And, they could keep them together for the next 8 years. And every year there's going to be some type of Tracy McGrady situation where, you hear about, well, does Jaylen really want out? And, somebody told him to get out. Somebody told him to not get out. And, you're going to hear about, how unhappy he is at times and how he's not fully comfortable with it. It's just that experience is not going to go away. I think it's just a part of having Brown and Tatum on the same team, and it's just a part of who Jaylen Brown is. It is what it is. How about Rich in Plymouth? Hey, Rich.
Yeah, so controversial take a little bit. You guys are talking about who moves into start the starting lineups. Maybe the answer is actually to put Anthony Simons in the starting lineup with Jaylen, with Jayson, and that becomes a bigger starting lineup, and a better defensive lineup across everyone except for Simons, so they can actually cover for his defensive deficiencies. You're putting Pritchard back into the second team, and he starts cooking every single bench unit because he's been playing against ones all season. So not saying that Simon's even going to be here, by the time we get to that point, but if he is, it could be a possibility to maximize Simon's playing time and also reduce Tatum's potential want to have to put so much offensive load on him when he comes back.
I understand what you're saying there, Rich. You want, the guy who does not defend in Simons on the floor with a bunch of guys who do defend. I don't think that's going to happen. Let's be realistic here. But B-Rob, what have you made of Anthony Simons this year?
He's been good for the last month. He's been better than I expected him to be defensively. I'm with you guys. He hasn't started to this point. He's certainly not going to start going forward. I would be surprised if he's still on this team after the trade deadline. But he certainly has played well enough where you're just not going to, you're obviously working it out. Moving him would be more financially motivated as opposed to talent motivated because he's shown now that he can be a pretty good, complement to the bench unit here, whether it's, playing with a guy like Garza or Hauser or just going three guards with him, White and Pritchard in crunch time.
Speaking of trades, Gary and Canton. Hey, Gary.
Yes, hi, guys. When you're talking about Anthony Simons, I cannot see them paying him $27 million up. So one of the ideas I had was Malik Monk, who plays now for the Kings, who's literally buried on the bench. And he makes his contract is 4 years, $78 million. I think there's an option. I'm not sure if it's a player or a team option in 27. And I was wondering your thoughts about that, getting a guy who's much cheaper, who actually is very similar to Anthony Simon.
B-Rob, what do you make of something like that?
I like where your head's at, but I don't think Monk is that's too much long-term money for a guy like that. I think the Celtics have probably one other big salary they can add to their roster, and I think it's going to be a big man when all is said and done. Just looking at what the complexion of what they have. Because you have Derek White, you have Payne Pritchard. Those guys move back into more of a secondary role when Tatum comes back. So, you don't need a Monk or a Simons. You need another big, I feel like.
And this is a team that I feel like in past years has been okay being lesser than, not consider it. They've been okay being small, downplayed the center position, things like that. And it's burned them at times. I think getting Porzingis the last 2 years covered up a lot of that. I don't want to see him go back to ignoring the center position.
I don't think you can. In this,
no, you can't. I know it's new spread out game and all this. It's still basketball. Tall guys still matter.
And Garza's been a fun story right now. He's playing well, but in the playoffs, is that a guy you can trust for 15 minutes a game?
Right.
No.
Is there a big man out there the Celtics could target this year? I mean, walk me through the machinations of this, B-Rob. You move on from Simons. That saves you money there. Does that ultimately, how do we get from point A to point B?
Right. Who's the perfect center making $15 to $20 million out there?
Right, exactly. Honestly, that guy.
One of them might be you're playing tonight, Zubac with the Clippers. He's on a deal like that, and the problem is he available? And my guess is going to be no, because they're playing better again. But you have to find that guy. And I guess the fascinating question I think for Brad Stevens is do you want a true big man who doesn't have shooting range, or do you want a stretch big a la Al Horford to kind of complement what you have with Cade already, obviously, who can be more of a shot blocker and a rim runner down there. So I don't know. The problem is, does that next Al Horford exist out there, and is he available to you, or do you have to unearth him somewhere?
So, and this might just be an old school basketball take. I'd really like more of a traditional big man, just because I think. Does that help the Celtics play a little bit more in control? My biggest fear is that they go back to, that this is just a temporary lull in shooting threes at an absolutely ridiculous rate. And, they go back to that. And, if they get a stretch big, that encourages them to trend back in a bad direction. That would be my concern.
Yeah, if I want to see them get, and I said this, somebody brought this up the other day. I forget who the center was I brought up, and was like, well, he doesn't shoot threes, so the Celtics wouldn't want him. They had Luke Cornett, who was a good 3-point shooter in college, and never used him in that role. And so I do think Joe Mazzulla is okay with having that big that doesn't shoot from the outside. And I hope that is the kind of guy they go, that's really what they need. I mean, we've been dancing around it, but that's really what they need, is the Luke Cornett replacement.
Right, because you have... And you've seen the successes here. The offense is great when you have 4 shooters around Nemi. Right. And a starting 5. So, if you just get another guy at that level, or obviously even better, if you can push Nemi to the bench, then you're really rolling. And so I think that is the ultimate goal. Whether they can find that guy by the trade deadline, or they have to wait to the summer to find that guy is the question. But given how good this team looks, I think the kind of pressure should be on them to be okay, why don't wait to make this move? We need this guy now, because this postseason run could be real.
90 seconds, no commercials. That is the Sports Hub Celtics show. We'll continue to take your thoughts on the C's, but I do want to get to some of the reporting on Alex Bregman and the Red Sox that's come out in the last 24 hours. We'll do that next. Quick update here from Alex Barth. It's McCarthy.